gonna show you guys how to make Osamason / Ken sounds in Serum from scratch. I haven't really seen an in-depth YouTube video on how to make sounds for Ken and Osamason in Serum, so I'm gonna give you guys the full breakdown. So I have some sounds that I made pulled up. Also, I'm sorry for the fucking shit quality of the video. My OBS crashed like 5 times, so I downloaded this bootleg fucking screen recording software, but it's the best I could do. I'm not a fucking tech nerd like Solo. So I'm gonna play these sounds. If you like them, you can watch the video, and if you don't like them, then you can fuck up. This is an ARP I made. This is, I think bass. Lead. So those are some random sounds that I pulled up. I'm going to show you guys how to make a sound like that from scratch. This is going to be a longer video. I'm going to go over everything. So some things you probably already know. I'll bet some things you hopefully don't know. You can learn some shit. These are your oscillators. These are what make the fucking noise. These are your wavetables. You have your pitch controls above your wavetables. So usually what I do is I open up Serum. I put a 1 note down. If I'm making a synth, I'll put a chord down. Usually a 5th chord or whatever it's called. I'll bring the note out to 4 bars. Then I'll go into Serum and I'll start making the sound. First, I'm gonna break down what everything does, and then I'll make a sound. So you have your 2 oscillators. These 2 are both the same thing. There's just 2 versions of them because that's how you layer a sound. If you go into your tables and you go to the analog folder and go to basic shapes, you'll have all of the wavetables. So as you scroll through these wavetable positions, there'll be all the different sounds. Sine wave. Unison, this is basically how many versions of the sound there are, and they're a little bit detuned, and that's where you control the detune is right here. This makes the sound more wide, so if I turn it up. This was really popular with 2021 Yeet sounds. I really wish I was making kits back then, because all I'd have to do is go in here and fucking turn this up and just export the sound. Then you have your blend, which is basically how loud the main sound is versus the detuned ones. You can see it on the screen. Wavetable position, this knob right here, unison and detune are going to be your most important ones. Blend, I usually just leave around in the middle. You can't really hear a difference unless you're like a fucking super senior fucking sound designer. I usually keep my unison low because I like my sounds to sound more thin and punchy, but you can turn it wherever you want. So then you have the same thing with your second oscillator. Also, if you want, I never do this, you can go in here and customize a wavetable yourself. I'm not going to go into this because I don't use it, and you can literally just use the default wavetables that Serum gives you. I use all types of different wavetables. I mainly just use the ones that come with Serum because they're the best ones in my opinion. There's also some unique ones, like the harmonic one. It'll play a pitch, or like they're made to do certain things as you change the wavetable position. They're really weird. I don't really use them that much, but I have been messing around with them a little bit. That's pretty much the oscillator. These are pretty self-explanatory. You have your octave, so you can pitch down your wavetable. Then your semitones, which I mainly use for like making a chord inside a Serum. I'll turn on a second oscillator. But that's just doing too much in my opinion. Then there's the fine pitch, which is just 1 cent. Usually what this is used for, you drag the LFO on here. You bring this down, make this really fast. And it kind of just adds like a little bit of movement to the sound. That's what it's mainly used for. I've never really seen it used for anything else. And the coarse pitch is basically just semitone, fucking 4 octaves, I don't know, whatever 64 divided by 12 is. You use this for ARPs, which I'll get into later, probably at the end of the video, because ARPs are probably the most complicated part of Serum. Serum is definitely not optimized for ARPs, so if you're looking to make ARPs, go to like fucking Hive or some shit, I don't know. So those are your oscillators, so those are the simplest parts. Sub is really self-explanatory. It's just a sub. You just pick from one of the shapes. You pick the octave and the level. Usually what I do is I just instantly go to square, put it down 2 octaves. It's just the best. You could use triangle. Saw is kind of fucking ass, but it's up to you. That's what sub does. This direct out button, what this does is if you have effects, like distortion, like the distortion is being put through the sub, if you click direct out, the effects won't touch the sub. So if you have effects on your oscillators but you don't want them to touch your sub, just turn on direct out. The same thing goes for the noise. And if you've never sound designed before and you're like, why the fuck would I ever want white noise playing on my sound? It's actually used a lot in Ken sounds. I know Florency loves to put white noise on his sounds, and he does it in a really good way. They're really sick. If you go look at his Serum banks, that's a great example of how to use white noise. And there's probably some other kits that have good usage of white noise, but it's underrated if you don't really know what it is. But it can also be overused, so you gotta be careful. Basically, you pick your white noise. You also don't have to do white noise. You could do like, if I could find one, this paper bag, which is actually more useful than it sounds. In one of my sounds here, this one I used it. You can hear it in the background. Noise can be used for all kinds of things. What these two buttons do, you can see it pops up. If you want the sound to play non-looping, then you click this. Like if you just want to play the beginning of the sound and you don't want it to loop, like if you have like a bass stab or something, you turn this on. And if you want it to match the pitch with the note you're playing, then you would turn this on. If this is off, it's semitone no matter, or it's monotone no matter what note you play. Pitch is self-explanatory. If you load in a sample like a vocal chop or a vox and it's D sharp, then you'd bring it down, you'd put on pitch tracking, and then you come down and turn the pitch down 3 semitones or something, whatever the fuck D sharp to C is. I never use brand phase, but what phase does is it changes the start time of the noise. So if you have a vox with a really slow transient, which is basically the sound takes longer to start, you can turn up the phase. I'll give you guys an example for one of the voxes that I loaded into my kit. So if you pull up a sound like this, and it's on 0, obviously it takes a long time, but if you turn up the phase. So that's all the oscillator subs and noises, which are all the sounds being played, basically. Then you have filter, which is really self-explanatory as well. It's just an EQ. There's all kinds of different presets. My favorites are the combs, the sample hold, the ring mod, and the reverb. Also the formants, but they're kind of not as good as the other ones. You can also use the flanges, and then the rest of the EQs are just like normal EQs. All these knobs are pretty self-explanatory if you play with them. They just move around the EQ. And then key tracking does is, depending on the note you play, the EQ will change pitch. It's pretty useful for the reverb and combs filter. It's able to keep the effect better because the EQ is moving around to match the frequency of the sound. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, I have no idea what the fuck mod does. But envelope, the first envelope is the envelope of the sound. So if you think of like 808s, when you drag an 808 and you turn down, you make your 808s look like this so you can control them. This is just the envelope. So if you want to make a pluck, typically you'll drag this down. But you can do whatever you want with this. If you're making a pad, you can like have it go like that. If you don't know what this is, basically from this dot to this dot is when you press the key. When you first press it, how long it takes the sound to come on. And then this right here is after the sound fully goes to its max volume, aka this dot, where it goes from there. So if you have it on max, it'll just stay at the same volume. But if you have it drop, then it'll go down. And it'll stay there at this dot until I let go, and then it'll go to this last dot. Basically, you just follow the little white. Envelope is basically like an LFO in envelope version, so that it only goes through once. And what I mean by that is an LFO is basically like an automation clip. So if I drag this LFO onto my detune, like I did earlier in the video where I did it with the fine pitch, and I grab this blue knob, and I can change the range. So right now, it's only going one way. So right now it's going from 0 to 100. So when I play this, it's gonna go from 0 to 100 in the span of 1/4 of a bar. So I can turn that to 1 bar. And as 1 bar passes, this line is gonna be playing, and wherever the line is at, it's gonna follow this, and depending on what this is linked to, which I linked it to the detune, it's gonna correlate with the position or the percent of how high the knob is turned up. This is really where you make unique sounds. You can only do so much with certain wavetables and subs and combinations of noises and filters. You can do a lot with that, but where you make the sound move is really where you make it unique. You can make it move really fast or really slow. So if I turn this up to every 1/32 of a bar, it's going through once, and then I turn the detune, I turn the unison up, so you can actually hear the detune being played. You can do that, or you can even turn it down. You can do so much with this. You're really gonna have to play with this on your own to figure out the ins and outs of it and kind of how to use it to make sounds that you want to make. I'll show you guys like how I use it when I actually make a sound. All you do is you click and hold and drag it to whatever you want to route it to, and then it's routed. And then you change the actual volume where it starts by just dragging the knob. And then if you want it to go from 0 to 50%, you grab this little blue knob and you drag it down to 50. And then this will be 0 down here, and this will be 50. And from left to right, that's your rate. So I'm gonna make it 1 bar, then I can have it go up. If you don't understand what that does by now, then if you hold shift and option while clicking, it'll snap onto the grid, so you don't have to double click every time you want to make a new dot. If it's on trigger, it'll play when you start the sound, but it'll restart. If it's on envelope, it'll do the same thing, but it'll only play once. So it's useful if you want to do like a volume riser like this and you only want it to play once. Because if you do trigger, it'll just keep restarting. And then off, it just is constantly running no matter what. So even if I play a sound on my MIDI and then stop, the line will keep moving. It'll be in a different place. Rate is how long in bars it takes to get from left to right. Your voicing down here is really important. Mono basically means it's only one note that can play at a time. So I'm clicking multiple notes on my keyboard, but it's only playing one sound. So if I turn off mono, you can play multiple sounds at once. Legato is really important. Basically what legato does is determines whether or not when you play a new sound, if the LFO will start playing again. So if I have it on, if I link it to the D tune, and I play the sound, I know it sounds like shit, but if I'm playing the sound, and I switch pitches, or keys, or notes, whatever, the LFO won't restart. But if it's off, then it will. But if it's on off, this mode, then it'll not restart no matter what. So you gotta keep that in mind. Porta is just how long it takes for the, if you have mono on, how long it takes for the sliding to go down. That's pretty much it for this first screen, or this first page of Serum. And back to what I was talking about earlier, the envelope is just pretty much the LFO, but if you select envelope, as far as I know, it's just the same thing. You can route it to stuff just like that. It's the same thing pretty much. Now for effects, these are really so expensive, so I'm not going to go over these. The main ones I use are hyperdimension, distortion, compressor, EQ, and filter. So these top 5, I'll use all of them, but the ones I use the most are these 5. Now the last thing I'm going to go over is the matrix, which when I first downloaded Serum, I thought was fucking bullshit and I didn't need it, but it's actually really important and useful to know. What this does is basically the back end of your Serum, so it tells you everything that's going on. So if I route this LFO to phase and wavetable position, and I go to the matrix, you'll see that they popped up. So the source, LFO1, the amount, which is basically this knob, is how much I drag this. So if I put this at 100, you'll see it's full. And if I drag it down to negative 100, it'll be on the left side. And then if I drag it up to like 50, it'll be at the 50. And you can adjust this from here or here. It doesn't matter, they both translate. And then the destination is where you drag the LFO to. So I dragged it to wavetable positioning. And then the type is also really important. If it's one way, like it is right here with this little arrow, you can do both ways or one way. I almost always do one way, so I click it like that. What this does is I'll show you guys the difference. Two way is this right here where it goes left and right. One way is where it goes only from left to right or right to left. So these two right here are on one way and this is on two way. All you do to change it is just click this arrow and then this will be on one way. Or if you want it to be on two way, you click it again and it's back going both ways. I personally only use one way just because it's easy to keep track of, because it's 0 to 100, but if it's two way then it's 100 to a negative 100, so it's kind of hard to, it's like you have less room to work with. Output, curve, aux source, never really use them. Same with these curves over here and this mod. That's pretty much everything you need to know about Serum. I'll use something in the global. Sometimes I'll turn the width down, like if I want the sound to be super thin, I'll turn it down to like 50. But usually I just keep everything here as it is. Also, if you go to mode down here and you change it to something else, it'll change the way that the D-tune is working. So if I load up 12 unison, see how the lines are all kind of weird? If I turn them to something else, they'll change how separated they are. Random just randomizes them, so they're all over the place. I'm gonna go here, go to edit preset to make a blank slate, and I'm just gonna make a sound from scratch. Probably gonna make a synth. I lay down some power chords or fifth chords, whatever they're called, and I'm gonna pull up a wavetable, and I'm gonna pull up the second one. I'm gonna FM this. I don't think I explained what these do, but basically you can picture these as effects. So if this wavetable is your plugin, this is like your mixer track. If I change this to like mirror, it'll mirror the wavetable. I'm gonna put a level. I'm gonna route LFO2 to LFO1 rate, bring it up a little bit. So I have that. I'm gonna add white noise. I'm gonna add some hyperdimension, turn on the mix. Put it at the end. I'm gonna add a flanger. I'm not gonna put a compressor yet. And an EQ, boost the fuck out of the low end. Honestly gonna turn off the hyperdimension. I'm gonna add a filter. I'm gonna do reverb. I'm gonna have the cutoff come slowly up. So I'm gonna drag it up. Turn the mix down. Then I'm gonna route the LFO 5, 2, or 3. I'm gonna route it to the coarse pitch. And I'm gonna do something fucking random, but I think it's gonna sound cool. I'm gonna do 12 ST. I'm gonna do 24. Make it one way. Basically, if you double click this and type in 24 ST or 12 ST or 36 ST, it's gonna automatically put this amount at the right amount out of 100 to make the top of this 24 semitones higher than the bottom of this, so that if you do in the middle, it'll be the same. If I want to, I can add another filter and do like a formant one, put the resonance up, drive up a little bit. I don't like using the filter in the effects because you can't actually see what the fuck is going on. The filter in the effects is the same thing as the filter here, except there's no picture, which makes it really fucking hard to actually use. I think only 60-year-old men who've been producing for 40 years know how to do this without seeing what the fuck is going on. I don't, so I stick my ass to this filter. I only use this if I know exactly what I'm gonna do. And if I really want to lock in on the sound, I'll use this filter first and use this as a reference, so copy everything I'm doing to see what the fuck is happening. Yeah, if you're wondering why there's 2 filters, there is, but you can't see what the fuck is going on here. But yeah, that's pretty much the sound. I don't want to make the video too long. I'm pretty much just fucking around with it. There's 200 of these sounds in my new kit that I dropped, and there's like 66 more by me. And the other kit I dropped was Solo and Casket. There's a bunch that they made as well. So if you want to get those sounds, I'll put a Dropbox link in the description. They're free. You can just go download them. That's pretty much it.